So guys, this is a Netflix project, which I was wondering, is there a different approach when you're making a project for them as opposed to when you do another movie or TV project?
Well, it became a Netflix project. So Netflix actually, we made the movie independently, and then Netflix saw the film and then picked it up. So I think we didn't set out to make a movie specifically for that. I think it's great that Netflix it is in line with the kind of stories that they support and bring into the world, and I think that's what attracted them to it. So, and I certainly have a long history with them from Orange is the New Black, but so that's a hard question to answer because it wasn't sort of the intention setting out, and I think, but it was exactly the right home when we found it.
Sure. And in terms of the casting then of Ellen Page in the lead role, how did you find her, and what was her approach to the project?
Ellen had read the script, and I had a meeting with her, and just fell in love with her. As I've always loved her work as an actress, but I think she is underused in terms of her dramatic chops. Like, I think everyone knows that she's funny and sardonic and dry, and she gets cast a lot in that way, but I think she's a very deep person and thinker, and I think this tapped into this other side of her that I think needs to be used a lot more, because she's got a lot of intensity and as well as charm, and so I think she just really connected to this part and to the writing, and it spoke to something in her, and we really clicked right away, and so it felt like a very good match.
Mm-hmm. And something for both of you, I guess. What were the challenges of shooting on location? Because it feels very natural and raw doing it that way. But were there any additional challenges doing it that way as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, when you shoot on the street in New York City, you cannot control anything. So you have, a lot of our digital effects were removing, looky-loos with their iPhones out in the background, or, you turn around and there's 100 people on the sidewalk going, "It's Ellen Page," So I think there's a rawness to that and an excitement to the way that you're shooting, because you're shooting down in the subway station and you have control of one track, but all the other tracks are open. So every time a train comes, you've got hundreds of people getting off and moving through the subway station, and it makes the shooting experience a very dynamic, exciting thing. But it's also pretty challenging. Because also you're on it's a small film, so you're trying to make it feel like New York City, and sometimes you have extras walking past camera, changing their coat, walking past camera again, putting on a hat, walking past camera. So you're sort of trying to create, the feeling of a bigger movie in a big city, and sometimes that takes a lot of creativity.
Mm-hmm. We had one incident where one of our characters has an altercation with a taxi driver. And of course, the taxi driver was an actor, and the taxi was a rented taxi. But in the midst of shooting this scene, we suddenly had a number of NYPD, officers in cars surrounding this taxi who was, having this argument with this woman. They were actors, but the police didn't know it. It was really
we had a camera. We were shooting from across the street, so the camera was sort of hidden. And the scene is she's having this huge fight in the middle of the street, and all of a sudden, two cop cars with the lights on, blaring sirens, pull up, block traffic, the cops jump out, and we're like, "It's a movie, we're over here." So I think there were a lot of moments like that where we sort of were, flying by the seat of our pants.
Mm-hmm. I thought one of the most interesting characters in the film was Carolyn, because
yes.
She's not instantly sympathetic, and you have to kind of warm to her. And that comes quite late in the film. Was that always the intention of having that in reserve, essentially, keeping her character that way?
Yeah, I mean, it was a real trick. I felt like that was a character that I had to thread the needle on perfectly, or it wouldn't work. It was someone that starts out as the villain, and you just have to hate her, really loathe her, and be repulsed by her in a way, and then gradually sort of warm to her, and by the end of the film really feel for her and have empathy for her. And that was a dance, and it was a dance for Tammy Blanchard, who played that part, and I thought she just nailed it in a lot of ways, because finding the humor and the weird broadness of that character at the beginning, and then just being able to pull out this very deep emotional well by the end of the film. But certainly it was something that, I knew was going to be one of the biggest challenges of the movie. And we were very specific about casting that part because it felt like it was just a tightrope walk, and an actor had to be able to hit all of those things and flip on a dime and be able to do that. And she auditioned for the part and just blew us both away.
Also, Alison, in this movie, you mentioned that you'd always wanted to work with Ellen. I guess Alison is also someone that you'd always wanted to work with. And did you realize straight away that the relationship between the two of them on screen would be so powerful?
I knew that they loved each other as people, and that really helps you as a director because there's a chemistry, there's an inherent chemistry there that you can draw on. I'm such a fan of Allison. I really think she's just one of the brilliant actresses of our time, and Ellen is as well. So I think I just knew that, we had a rehearsal at Allison's house just to read through the script, the three of us, and we just laughed the whole time. I mean, I love them and they love each other, and so it just made shooting so much fun. And it was a very hard shoot, and they both were such troopers. I mean, Allison Janney there was a scene where she had to go 50 feet up on a condor crane, hanging by just these little clips on a belt, in Washington Square Park, and she wanted to do her own stunt and do it all the way and do it over and over and over again. And I was just very inspired and moved by those actors and what they brought to the table because they worked hard. It was hard work, and working with babies is incredibly difficult, and they just went for it and were willing to work through the crying and the, when everybody stopped down on set because your main actor needs to eat Cheerios and yogurt for an hour.
Which isn't the usual thing.
It's not. I mean, maybe it is the usual thing, actually. She's in her trailer eating Cheerios and yogurt.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey